Welcome to the Cultivology podcast, where we study the science of growth, the growth of small, niche, and large businesses, and how we scale.
Howdy folks, we are here bagging out some 10-pound blocks for ready-to-fruit substrate. And today we're going to talk about why a lot of mushroom farms end up staying small. And in the grand scheme of things, I really believe it's because a lot of people are not managing their systems efficiently on the back end of their farm. I think in farming, there's this big misconception where the main focus is we're growing stuff and not that we're an actual business. So this creates a lot of problems for people. And I know it did for me, and that's the only reason why I feel as if I have a little bit of room to talk about it. Because when I started, all I was focused on was growing mushrooms. That was the only focus. There was nothing else. And there was a lot of reasons that fed into that. Mainly, a couple of the things being that there were not a lot of great resources that were compiled that were actually in chronological order and made sense. There's a lot of misinformation on the internet. There's a lot of different people who have different texts and ways to do things. And at the end of the day, a lot of these people are not growing mushrooms for a living. Most of the people that you're going to find online have a lot of big opinions because they've grown some cubensis in mommy's basement. And that's the fact. Most of the people that you see who are a little bit mean in these comment sections and mushroom growing pages are usually people who are not doing it full time and full scale. So that is probably lesson number one here as to why most farms do not get any bigger or learn to scale, just because there's not information out there and people are freaking assholes online. So it can be really detrimental to the learning process when you're getting tons of misinformation, as well as getting information from people who do not want to see you succeed. So that makes it extremely hard. So going back to the systemic side of things, there are all of the things on the farm. Oh, sorry, Twig. All of the things on the farm are systems. At the end of the day, everything is a system, or it should be a system. There's a great book called The E-Myth Declassified, and he talks about in this book about how no matter what business you're in, or no matter what situation you may be in with a business, you are at the point where you need to be thinking about being a franchise. It doesn't matter if you're never going to be a franchise, because more than likely you're not going to be a franchise. I mean, most small businesses, the percentage that actually make it to the point where they're franchising is extremely small. But with that being said, we need to look at the things that franchising possesses that we do not possess. And the biggest thing that you're going to see is franchises have systems, very specific systems. And these systems are set up in a way that any skill level of worker can achieve the goal of being proficient in that particular position. And that's made all the world of difference for our farm. Creating standard operating procedures, getting a weekly schedule that's down pat, that you are 100% committed to each week. This is the only way that you're going to have employees and be able to manage people properly, is being set up in some sort of sense where you have everything in checklists, in daily SOP sheets. We're able to just look at it and go, okay, this is what needs to be done today. No thinking, no overhead, no, oh, what do I gotta do? So this is a big part of what our farm launch program is really creating the foundations for these farms. And I just see it time and time again. People are going to get into mushroom growing. They start growing. They find out it's much harder than they think it may be. They end up selling tinctures, dried mushrooms, whatever. They try doing the secondary and tertiary product thing. And ultimately, they end up failing because that market is so over-flooded. And they do not have the basis of their systems laid out properly. So that's why we created Farm Launch, and just doing this for so many years at this point, you can see the farms who are operating with systems and the ones who are not. It's blatantly obvious once you start taking a look at them online, taking a look at what they're producing, the quality of their product. It's real easy to tell who's actually being systematic with their approach. So I think that is ultimately the biggest reason why farms fail. They just do not have that, hey, it's Tuesday, we're making substrate. And that's really what you need, So beyond just making substrate, if you're making all of the steps of the process, if you're making your own auger, keeping your own culture bank, making G1 spawn, making G2 spawn, and then spawning it eventually to bulk substrate, there's a lot more than just fruiting mushrooms to be looking at. So this is where systems become extremely, extremely important. Because if you fall out on, let's say, making your Blue Oyster G1s, and you need to make 50 Blue Oyster blocks, and you have no G2 spawn, right there, you're potentially a month out from having any product in your freezer or in your fridge, I'm sorry. So, number two, reason why most farms fail is consistency. And obviously consistency, you can draw that right back to having a schedule and being on time and making sure that you're checking off everything, every single thing that needs to happen within every system of the business. So those are just some main things. And one of the big obstacles, which comes with the whole learning curve of just growing mushrooms and starting a farm in general, kind of as I had stated before, is just getting that information from everywhere. Because when you're going to implement these systems, I mean, obviously you have to start somewhere. When you start implementing systems from people who are not doing the do, and you're not totally comprehending the A to Z plan of how you need to be invoicing, working on sales, working on marketing, all of that stuff each week, and ideally each day, it's really easy to get confounded or confabulated. I know for us, like, it's taken years to get these tracking guides and production sheets created, just because mostly when we started many years ago, the USDA, all of the organic certifiers, they had nothing on mushrooms, nothing on specialty mushrooms at all. They didn't understand how the process worked. They had no idea what they were doing and what we were doing, really. So that created a lot of challenges and hurdles within the actual systems that we created when we started. So those were all DIY type stuff. All of our tracking systems are, using the Julian calendar to track all of our species and all of our lot numbers through the entire process. Took a lot of time to get down. And that's all things that you definitely need to have in your back pocket and be implementing on a weekly basis, because it's super important to be watching all of your different KPIs. So we'll go with that as number 3, not tracking the things that are happening on your farm. So if you're not tracking all of these different index performance measures, you're ultimately going to forget that this is a super important part of the business. And it just gives you clarity. And at the end of the day, clarity is power, and clarity is going to allow you to make decisions faster, implement things a little bit quicker, and ultimately be more effective. And that's what, as a business owner, something that you need to be able to do. Is speed is definitely power, momentum. All of those things are super easy to lose and hard to gain back. I just see a lot of people in business who really make it a point that being quick with your decisions is important. And if you don't have the proper tracking measures to understand whether or not you should be concerned or not, you're going to be already ass backwards before you get started. So after that, another big thing that comes to mind is just tying back into number 3, getting these wrong systems. When you're learning about airflow, contamination, all of the differences in different operating data that you may be bringing in, it's really easy to miss something small, which is why I recommend anybody in any business to have some kind of mentor who has already done the do and has already taken the steps and been successful and is essentially somewhere where you want to be. There were things even into years 7 and 8 at 10 Mile Mushrooms that I had missed in our proper lab setups and airflow, pressure differentials, things that literally cost me thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And they were really stupid little things that if I had had somebody or other folks in the industry to talk to, I would have probably very quickly caught it. But I didn't. So there I was by myself trying to learn all of this stuff with all of this misinformation, and I missed some things. And that's definitely another big reason for failure, is just not knowing the proper steps in the entire process, especially with mushroom growing. Maybe if you're doing vegetables or you have some other kind of farm, you know, it may be a little bit different just because things are a little bit funky here on the mushroom farm, let's say. But yeah, these are definitely some of the reasons why people fail. Just not implementing the systems, not learning from people who have already done it, lots of misinformation, and really just not being effective. So hopefully this helped. Follow along. Check out below. Our Farm Launch Lite is available for free. It's a 6-week implementation plan to get your own mushroom farm started. If you live somewhere on the East Coast, we can easily ship you blocks and get your farm started without having to do all of the other 4 steps involved other than just fruiting the mushrooms. So hope this helped, guys. Check out our Cultivology podcast. A lot more cool stuff like this coming. Grow mush mo.